Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our 5th Virtual Travel Career Summit. We are currently doing our opening summit presentation. This is our first one for this week. We will be joining you every day this week at this same time. And then a few days this week we'll be popping in at 11 a.m. Pacific, and then followed by 2 p.m. Pacific. So when you're registered, which you already are because you knew where to find us, just double check those calendars to know when to tune in. And don't worry, we'll continue to send you out reminders. But yeah, so Krystal and I are here. We're super excited to be opening this summit. I'm here in Carmel, California. Krystal's in Houston, Texas. I'm the owner of Kinship Vacations. I'm the founder of the Travel Advisor Training and Mentorship Facebook group. That's how many of you found us and this virtual travel career summit. And Krystal is the anchor that I've been searching for my whole life. She joined my team in August 2018, and ever since she's just progressively taken over more and more leadership and duties and responsibility, and she's our marketing mindset guru. So she is, she's going to be popping in a lot this week, and you're lucky because she has a lot of great stuff to share. So the first topic today is who a travel career is perfect for. We wanted to open the summit. We know that right now is a crazy time in all industries, in all aspects of life. We are not burying our head in the sand when it comes to coronavirus, COVID-19. In fact, Krystal and I had a heart-to-heart last week to talk about, is this the right time to do a virtual summit for travel careers? Because the travel industry was frankly one of the first industries to be hard hit by the COVID-19 impacts. I mean, they were one of the first that you probably started seeing in the news in terms of cruise ships off the coast of Asia being not allowed to embark in the ports. And then now there's continuing coverage of cruise ships to the point now where most American-based cruise ships are not sailing anymore. And then of course the flight cancellations and the stop travel orders. So not just for leisure travel, but business travel. So it's been tough. We're not going to lie. But we decided that actually it's the perfect time to start talking about this as a potential career.
Yeah, so when we had the conversation, it was, okay, the travel industry is in a rocky point right now, and there's absolutely no denying that. And travel agents all over are scrambling a little bit because their businesses, including ours, including mine, really came to a full stop. And where I had all these great trips lined up because we were headed in, you got to remember when this started, we were headed into spring break. And then we were headed into a lot of planning for our summer vacations. And so this is generally the busiest season for travel advisors. We call it wave season between January and April. And right in the middle of wave season, this all happened. And everybody's businesses not only came to a completely screeching halt, where I was getting on average 5 inquiries a week because this was a busy time of year. All of those inquiries ghosted me overnight. And then all of the travel that I had planned out through 2020, we had to start canceling and start rebooking and start moving things out. So when it came to a conversation of, is this a good time to do a travel career summit while the travel industry is under so much struggle, we kind of emphatically said yes, because and we're going to go through more detail today, but if you're in the industry, you're looking for things to kind of help get you through it. You're looking for strategies and for tips and things to get through it. It's also, it ends up being a really good time. It ends up being, we've decided we're just going to flip our year, because usually in November, December, those are quiet seasons for a lot of travel advisors. And so that's when they're doing a lot of their finances, the bookkeeping, making sure their systems and their marketing are in place to get ready for wave season. Well, now we just got a little bit of extra time to get those foundations set in place, because I don't know about you all, but I'm stir crazy. As soon as this is all lifted, I'm going on vacation. So are a lot of other people. Yeah.
Yeah, and we also recognize that there's a couple different types of people watching the summit right now. Some people who are considering joining the industry,
Mhm.
and those who are already in it, and particularly how Krystal mentioned, the ones who are already in it are sort of probably just like us, going through a roller coaster of emotions day to day. Like one day it's like, okay, great, this is the break I've been asking for during a crazy wave season. I can now focus on filing my taxes, or, doing the working in my business, or working on my business as opposed to in my business. And then the next day it's like, oh my God, what what am I gonna do? And you're just like paralyzed with anxiety, so you do nothing. And then the next day you decide to organize your pantry. Like, we get it.
Yeah.
And then the next day you're like focusing on homeschooling your kids. We we get it. So that's for the current travel advisors, and that's why we've tried to build a lot of really great content to help you, inspire you for those days where you're like, okay, great, I get to work on my business.
Mhm.
We're not saying that, like, you know, we're not trying to be unrealistic here. We're like, yeah, this is what you should be doing 24/7. And
Oh yeah, because we're homeschooling moms too, and we're feeling this in our souls right now.
yeah, so this is just tools for you to have in your back pocket for those days where you're motivated and inspired. And as you're going through this summit with us, if you have questions, if you have comments, anything, please reach out to us. I forgot to mention throughout this particular webinar too, if you have questions, feel free to type them in the chat box or the Q&A box, and we will get to all of them. We may wait a few minutes, if it seems appropriate to wait a few minutes to answer things. But so yeah, so that was just my little admin break. But for the newbies who are really considering, there's several scenarios where you might be considering joining the travel industry, and we're going to talk extensively about this next, who a travel career is perfect for. And again, we're not going to sugarcoat it, because there are some people who aren't suited for this career. This is actually a decent time to start your career, because you can, when you're having those days where you're not pulling your hair out homeschooling and just looking for a great distraction from the world, you can sit down and, take some of the online curriculum that most, new travel agents do to learn how to become a travel agent, or learn how to set up social media pages, or learn how to implement a customer relationship management system. You can spend the next however many months it's going to take for us to pull through this as a society, developing your foundation, creating a solid foundation for your business, so that when the restrictions do lift and people are ready to travel, you're feeling confident and ready to take on those clients. So Krystal and I are very much, maybe this will be repeated throughout the week, but we're very much people of abundance mindset. Not gonna lie, like, we both have to walk each other, or talk each other off the ledge every once in a while.
Every once in a while.
Yeah, I say we're of abundance mindset, but we're also very practical. So we do believe that there's a silver lining in all of this, and that's what we're trying to convey now, but with very practical ways to implement your life moving forward. So this is
Absolutely.
and today is really focused on those who are considering joining the travel industry.
Mm-hmm.
The next few days are for people who want to consider, but also very much can be implemented right away for those who are already in it. So keep that in mind. Is there anything else we forgot to cover?
No, I think that you hit it all. Like I said, it's just about giving yourself a solid foundation because there's a steep learning curve to get into this industry as well. A lot of people equate it to being sprayed with a fire hose of information because being a travel advisor is not just planning an itinerary. There is a full fast. There are all these pillars of being a great travel advisor. It's knowing sales and marketing. It's knowing how to do your branding. It's knowing how to set up business systems and operations. And it's also a bit of that mindset part as well. And so we're going to be covering all of those things this week. And when you really break it down, that's a lot of information to learn in a very short amount of time when you become a travel advisor. And so the benefit of starting your career now is that you get to get that foundation and those systems in place so that when you do take your first client, you are ready to hit the ground running. You already have everything set up. You've got the time because we're in quarantine central right now. So those of you that are having to watch Tiger King on Netflix now because you've run out of everything else under the sun to watch.
I watched it.
We've got some training videos for you, or we've got some education for you to kind of help you kind of get started if you start running out to the very last thing and you're tired of listening to Daniel Tiger on repeat in your house the way that I am right now. So it's just an opportunity. Like you said, if you're going to look at silver linings, you're going to look at this as to what am I going to do to kind of make the most out of my time when you're done organizing your pantry. Maybe check out a different career option and maybe learn a few different things as well.
Yep, for sure. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you guys, and it's just I'm a former military officer, so I'm all about PowerPoints. Krystal gives me crap for it
all the time.
She's married to one too, so she gets it.
I do get it. It's what makes it so funny.
It just makes it easier to visualize, okay?
Yep.
All right, so can you see it, Krystal?
I can see it.
Okay, so let me start the show. All right, so who is a travel career perfect for? This is sort of what we're talking about today. Why does it say that the sharing is paused? Can you still see it?
I don't see, I see just your PowerPoint screen. I don't see the actual slideshow. So it might be a matter of just changing what screen you're sharing.
Okay, let me undo that. You never know with this what it's going to be. I'll just do this instead. Okay, view. I can hear my daughter. She has a Zoom call with her classmates right now. She's talking to them.
That's cute.
Can you see it now? Okay.
Yep, there you go.
Okay, cool. Let me just make this bigger so you can't see my unorganized desktop screen. Okay, so who is a travel career perfect for? And this is sort of, again, we want to talk very practically to you, no nonsense, because it's not perfect for everyone. So here's our agenda. Krystal and I are briefly going to share with you our stories, what led us to our career path. What does a travel career look like? And then who is it for? And then also who is it not for? And then we do talk about military spouses, those who are in sort of a difficult nomadic life situation due to their commitment to service, whether because of their spouse or whatever, that was the foundation of Kinship Vacations and the foundation of our virtual travel career summits because, and you'll find out both Krystal and I are military spouses. I'm a veteran. There's been a significant employment challenge for military spouses over the decade or more. which we've kind of shifted because now everybody's facing employment challenges. But of course, the military spouse community is near and dear to our heart, and we do offer in our program specifically scholarships and discounts for people who are involved in that service community. So we do take a little bit of time to talk about the extra challenges that military spouses face and how this is a really great career opportunity for them. And then finally, we'll just wrap it up with what's holding you back. We hear a few common reservations when it comes to taking that leap, and I'm going to take the time to address it. So without further ado, that's me. Sometimes I have blue hair, sometimes I have blonde hair, purple hair. Sometimes it's shaved on the side. That's me in Morocco a couple of years ago. It was a really fun trip. So I was an Army brat. I lived all over the place. Lived in Italy for a few years growing up, and that's where I sort of got the travel bug. And then, like many Army brats, decided to join the Army. I commissioned as a military intelligence officer, and at one point during my stint, I went to Afghanistan where I met my husband, which was in 2006, and we've been married for, is it 12 years now or 13 years? 13 years.
Celebrate 12.
Is it? It's 13 years, yeah. So I got out. I was mostly reserve component, but I officially got out. I resigned my commission in 2014. After I left the military, I continue to be a military spouse. My husband's still an active Army officer. He's one of those guys that like really likes, he wanted to be a soldier his whole life and he really likes it. So we'll be doing this for the foreseeable future. I got an MBA at the George Washington University. My undergrad's in art history, which is like not useful to most people, but I'm a really great tour guide in museums if you ever, want to pay me to show you around some of the museums. It's all relative though. It still fuels my passion for travel. But after my MBA, I started a career in Carnival Corporation, the huge cruise conglomerate, because we were stationed in Miami. Had my first baby, got exposed to the travel industry on the business side there, and learned that travel agents are still very much relevant, especially for the cruise industry. The cruise industry very much depends on travel agents for sales. I think across the board, 60% of their sales are done through travel agents. The other 40 would be like directly on the carnival.com website or royalcaribbean.com website or phone lines, or I don't know, Costco, if you can count. I'm not sure what the other breakdown is, but more than half of it comes from travel agents. So they obviously depend on travel agents. And then when you look at the more luxurious lines like a Krystal Cruises or Regent Seven Seas, their sales are closer to 98% dependent on travel advisors. So just the cruise industry alone, which I could geek out on numbers, is actually a very small percentage of the total vacation landscape. Like, I don't know, like 3% or something ridiculous is totally dependent, very much dependent on travel advisors. And what I was learning at the time is that travel advisors are at home, they're home based now, and the way that they can be successful is to specialize, have a niche, and be successful using digital entrepreneurship. So it became very interesting to me, and we were facing another move. By the way, military spouses, military families move about every 2 to 3 years. So we were facing another move to Newport News, Virginia, which doesn't have the same type of industry that Miami, Florida has. So I was looking at, either if I did get lucky enough to get a job, something that was most likely a step down in responsibility and pay, or probably taking months upon months to actually get a job, if not getting a job at all. So I decided to just go for it and start my own business as a travel agent. And another reasoning for this was every time we would move, every 2 to 3 years, it was really frustrating for me to go to the job fairs and be told that, despite your history of leadership, 300 service members in a combat zone, accomplishing these things as a young person, and having an MBA from a really great university, you're qualified to be a UPS truck driver, or it taking, dozens of resumes sent out to not hear back from a single one for jobs that I was clearly qualified, if not overqualified for. Because, the fact of the matter is, the way we get jobs now is we know people. And if you have to move every 2 to 3 years, you don't have established networks in place to get your resume in front of the person who's actually looking at resumes. So you will find, maybe Krystal will echo this, but if you talk to any military spouse, it's the same story. Like, it's just demoralizing every time you have to try to look for a new job in a new place, because it's the same story every time. So I was just tired of that. I wanted to have some element of control in my life, in what I say, a lifestyle that's exceptionally void of choice or control. So I was like, I'm going to start my own business. So that's what I did. I started Kinship Vacations, and after a couple years into it, I was seeing some success and I was really enjoying it. And I was like, oh my gosh, other military spouses need to know about this, because military spouses travel. They live in, places overseas like Germany, Japan, Hawaii. They get this really cool travel knowledge that's more extensive than what a tourist would get. Yet they don't, as a local, they don't take for granted sort of what's cool about the local tourist stuff. Like, I don't know about you, but when I lived in Seattle, I never went to see the Space Needle because I was a local, but as a military spouse, they're like, we're here, we're going to Paris, we're going to do the Eiffel Tower. They do all the cheesy local or tourist stuff, plus they get to know it as a local. So military spouses have this unique knowledge set in travel. They need portable jobs that they can take anywhere they go. They often need it in home because they have exceptional childcare challenges. So I'm going to get into this a little bit more later, but bottom line is, I was like, oh my gosh, this is I don't know why more people aren't shouting to the rooftops. This is a really great opportunity for military spouses. So that's why I started these virtual travel career summits and started a travel advisor training and mentorship program within Kinship Vacations. It was specifically geared towards military spouses at first, to give them a place to explore this career field and develop their own business that they could own and take wherever they want and flourish, and finally use those skills and experience that they've been probably not able to express because of the limitations of our lifestyle. So I'm just going to toot my horn once before I hand it over to Krystal. But this last August, a lot of that work was really rewarded. I was actually awarded the ASTA Entrepreneur of the Year Award for 2019 for our work with the military spouse community and veterans in helping to shift the employment landscape and using the benefits of a travel advisor career in that regard. So I'm really proud of that. And so that's where I'm going to end it. And we at Kinship Vacations, we have opened it up to non-military spouses and veterans. But like I said, we will always have a special place in our hearts for that community, because that's where we came from and we always want to give back. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, I want Krystal to talk about herself though, because you'll notice some parallels, but also differences.
Well, before we shift to me, Judy had a question just to clarify. You said that 98% of something was based on travel advisors. And I think it's when you were talking about how dependent the cruise industry is on travel advisors. And so
Yeah.
can you clarify that before we?
Yeah, so if you look at the cruise industry as a whole, which say there's like 300 cruise ships circling the world roughly right now in a variety of companies, I believe it's roughly 60%. that are dependent on travel advisors. But if you break it down to um, the more high end, like I remember seeing a presentation with Krystal Cruises a few years ago. They said 98% of their sales come from travel advisors. So, comparable cruise lines to Krystal are Regent Seven Seas, um, Azamara, kind of. Um, I'm totally blanking, but the luxury, like basically the bottom line is the more luxury, the more likely they are, more higher their dependence upon travel advisors is. So, yeah, it's kind of cool and
Mhm.
also um, crazy to think, even in this digital world with Expedias and stuff, that there's these pockets of the industry that are so focused on travel advisors, which is why a cruise niche can be extremely lucrative, especially if you decide I'm going to focus on luxury cruises slash small ship expedition type cruises or river cruises, because they are very travel agent friendly.
Well, and to piggyback on that idea, it's part of that is, and I saw a presentation on this last year, is that so many lay consumers that like will go to book directly are going to think about the major ones like Norwegian, Carnival, Royal Caribbean, and then they have a very preconceived notion about what cruising is and what cruising is like. And that's where a travel advisor is so valuable, because it introduces because it's a particular client with a particular budget that was going to be attracted to an Azamara or a Celebrity or a Crystal Cruise or a Krystal's a ship on Celebrity, but anyway,
Yeah,
but that are going to introduce clients to that higher price point, and they're going to kind of like introduce people like into that and filter people that direction. So I think it's a really like Ashley said, it's a cool opportunity.
yeah, for sure.
So and Judy, let us know if that clarified everything for you. But so for my story, it's fairly similar to Ashley. So I was a military spouse for 11 years. And prior to that, I graduated from University of Kansas, where I met this guy in Army ROTC and fell in love and all of that. But really graduated college and, we weren't engaged. And so I took a job out in Long Beach, California, as a consultant, like a contractor for special events and filming out there. And that was right in the midst of like the writers' strike, which then had its own ripple effect on the economy out there. And eventually made my way back to Kansas, and we made our way. We ended up getting engaged, and we had a very typical military love story in that we had dated for a really, really long time and then got engaged and got married really, really fast, because he came down on orders, and his orders were to go to Germany. And in order for me to move to Germany with him, we needed to be married. As he said, he called me on a Thursday and said, we got engaged a few months before that. It was January. We were planning an October wedding. He called me on a Thursday and said, hey, I just got orders to Germany, and if you want to come with me, we need to be married like yesterday. And so at the time he was in Georgia, I was in Kansas, jumped in my car that weekend, finished up work, drove, pulled an all-nighter Sunday night driving from Kansas to Georgia, ended up in the Georgia courthouse Monday morning, where we got married. And a few weeks later, I was in Germany, and that was the first time. I was from a really small town in Kansas. I was not like a super well-traveled person, and that was the first time I had ever been to Europe. It was one of the first times I'd ever been out of the country, and ended up living in Germany. And so we got to Germany, and I got to Germany in March. He deployed for a year that July, and that's when the travel bug started, because I really had very limited options living there at the time. Whereas I said, I was either going to sit around on this army base, bored out of my mind, or start traveling. Because the other caveat to that was I had always been a person who had always worked full time. I had always worked multiple jobs. But now, as a military spouse, I was overseas on a base with very limited employment options, because when you want to go work for any kind of Department of Defense jobs, you have to go through a lot of background checks and security screenings and things like that, even just to become a substitute teacher on base. It took me 9 months to get security clearance to become a sub. And so I eventually did get on, and I worked for the schools for a while. We moved back stateside. He was stationed in Georgia for 4 months. And so I did try to find a job at that point, but most people around the Fort Bragg or the Fort Benning area in Georgia kind of are able to spot military spouses from a mile away based on your resume. When I worked for Department of Defense schools in Germany, it's pretty blatant black and white. I'm a military spouse or affiliated with the military. And but that was all right, because at that point we were getting ready to move to North Carolina. I was pregnant. We were expecting our first child. And I thought, that's fine. I will just take this next 6 months off. We'll move. I'll have this baby. I'll enjoy maternity time. And then I'll go back to work. And then my oldest daughter, when she was born with a brain deformity. And all of the plans that we had really came to screeching halts as far as that came, because traditional employment options then at that point weren't a possibility for me. We had to really kind of restructure our entire lives around her, because all of a sudden we were at doctor's appointments and therapy appointments for sometimes 5 times a week, in between talking with social workers to coordinate different services for us. And we had appointments with nutritionists, with physical therapists, occupational therapists, and then eventually it grew into speech therapy. And so going back to work at that point just was not an option, on top of which my husband was psychological operations, which is attached to special operations. And that community in the military is on a rapid deployment schedule. And when you're not deployed, you are TDY is what they'll call it, but it just basically means you're on mission or you're sent somewhere else.
Home.
You're not home. That's right. You're not home.
Yeah.
And so I think for a year period there, he was gone 10 months non-consecutively. And so it just was, I didn't even have a second person at home to kind of help juggle all the things. It was all on me. So we ended up moving back to Germany just to kind of get us out of that cycle of the crazy deployment schedules. And he became an exchange officer with the German military. And my daughter started doing really, really well and flourishing in schools. And we started to kind of see a light at the end of the tunnel. And I said, all right, when we move back stateside again, I'm ready to go back to work, because being a stay-at-home mom was okay, and it was absolutely necessary for our family, but it was really hard for me. It was not the life that I had ever imagined for myself. I think that it takes a really special person to be built as a stay-at-home mom. And when I watched my friends around me that were doing it, who were just so amazing with structuring their kids' days with flashcards and activities and art projects, I was barely treading water as a stay-at-home mom. I just didn't think about things like that. So I was ready to go back to work. And in all of our time, we ended up living 6 years overseas. During that time, I was planning a lot of vacations for family and friends. Everybody and their mother would call me and want me to plan their trip through Italy. And so we would even have friends and family come and visit us, and we would take them as like pseudo tour guides through Germany, through France, England, Italy. And I really kept thinking, man, there has got to be a way to make this financially advantageous, because this is the skill set that I've obviously developed over the years. To the point that I can stand at the back of a Neuschwanstein castle tour, and I can give the tour. Now, I've been so many times with friends and family. And so I've noticed the last time I was in there, we were in the back and some people were having a hard time hearing. And I was like, oh, but you'll notice that in the chandelier, it's not actual crystal, it's painted glass, because, Ludwig was running out of money by the end of this whole mess. So I knew my stuff, and I knew what I thought it would be a really neat idea. And I was also looking at different work from home ideas, because I still did have this crazy schedule with my daughter's therapy appointments and needing to pick her up from school and things like that, and enter in, the landscape of working from home, which we all know is just a crazy storm of stuff and information that's out there that's available from work from home jobs. Everything from bad MLM opportunities, predatory opportunities where they say you can make money, take this survey from home, that doesn't really work. And then I really, really got fortunate because I was looking on host agency reviews and reading all these articles about all the things it takes to become a travel advisor, which we're going to get into later on this week. It's a lot, and it was a really overwhelming list. And then I found Ashley in a Military Spouse magazine, and she was mentioned there, and her opportunity and her spiel that she just gave you guys about how this travel industry is thriving, and being a travel advisor from home is absolutely a great opportunity. I thought, what is this? So I cyber stalked her for a while, and I set up a call with her. And what I really appreciated about Ashley at the time was that I asked her very point blank, what were your sales last year? How much money are you making? How long did it take you to get that? And she was very candid with all of her answers. Whereas a lot of people in more sleazy sales positions would be skirting things. She was very direct with me on what I could expect and what this looked like. And a few days later, I signed a contract. I was ready to go. So I signed up and paid her fee, which she's going to go more into later this week as well. But it was, signed in, paid for all my education, was ready to invest in this opportunity. And here I am 2 years later talking to all of you lovely people. And I have this amazing business on the side, Serendipitous Traveler, but we focus on girlfriend getaways. But I also have now this amazing opportunity to talk to other people about this opportunity as well.
Yeah, and I mean, she started and she just never looked back. Like she's had the mindset, the long-term mindset. We'll talk about who this is perfect for, and Krystal's like the textbook example of what it takes to be successful. So, she's just really been a really great blessing to have on our team.
Yeah.
And, she's already inspiring lots of other travel advisors in the industry, and helping them. So it was, and her business, Serendipitous Traveler, a lot of what comes up in conversations about Krystal is the term serendipity, because like this, all, the career, the opportunity, the way she's giving back, it's all very serendipitous. So yeah, so pay attention to what she says. Okay, so let's move on. So like I said, similarities, but some differences there in our story. Okay, so what does a career in travel look like? So throughout the week, we'll be talking mostly about travel agents. We'll talk a little bit about travel bloggers. Definitely don't miss Mackenzie Jervis's her discussion on travel blogging for travel advisors. I believe it's tomorrow.
Tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah.
Or evening, depending on what coast you're on. Yeah.
Yeah. She continues to be a travel blogger. She's been doing it for years. But she also works on in the Kinship Vacations team, and is now the editor-in-chief of our blog, the Peregrine Kinship blog. If you haven't seen it, check it out, peregrinekinship.com. Can you put the URL in the comments? So check it out. But we focus on agents more just because that's what we do, that's what we know. But there is a little bit of an intersection there. So this is sort of what a career in travel looks like in terms of freelancing. These are sort of the two options that are out there. Well, first of all, this was the question I had, and what many people still ask me, like if I say, oh yeah, I'm a travel advisor, I'm a travel agent, I don't know, 75% of the time they're like, oh really? That's cute. Are there really still travel agent? Like there's this sort of And it's even on one of our frequently asked questions on our Kinship Vacations website.
Yeah.
Yes, there are still travel agents. It's not what it used to be, though. You probably have this vision in your head, if you're over 30 at least, of what a travel agent is, where you had to fly from Milwaukee to Orlando for your Disney vacation, and back in the day you would go to your Main Street travel agency, whether it was AAA or a locally owned mom and pop shop, and they'd have lots of brochures, and there'd be a few people working behind their big boxy computers, ready to help you. And you'd say, well, this is what I want to do. And they'd start typing in codes in their fancy global distribution system to come up with the right flight itinerary for you. They'd say, okay, well, I have this flight available. It's costing this. Would you like me to book it? You say yes, they book it, and they literally print out your ticket there and give it to you from like an old school printer. And then they give you, then they call up Disney, make your reservations, write down your information, and give it to you in a little packet. Yeah, that doesn't exist anymore. I mean, you can still go to a AAA, you can still go to some brick and mortar, but most, I don't know what the percentage is, a majority of travel businesses now are operating from home. And what happened was, number one, airlines stopped issuing commissions in the 90s or early 2000s. Those travel agencies of the past depended very much on commissions from airlines. So when they stopped issuing commissions, a lot of them went under and or had to make changes. And one of the changes was they started operating from home. The second thing that happened was the rise of the online travel agency like Expedia, Orbitz, blah, blah, blah. You get my drift. Again, that took some business away from those travel agents that were operating in their brick and mortars, or even the ones working from home, and caused a shift in the industry. And so now what has happened is travel agents, in order to compete with the Expedias of the world, now need to specialize. They need to be very, provide boutique customer service, personalized service. We can't possibly replicate what Expedia is doing. We don't have the scale. So there's no point in trying to be an Expedia from your little home office in your house. That's why we recommend specializing. And we'll get into lots of detail on this week. So really what a travel agent nowadays is they work from home. They have flexible lifestyles. Maybe they have young kids that are still in school or not yet in school. They're tech savvy. And when I say savvy, you don't have to be like a coder. You just basically need to be able to write emails and, go on Facebook and work with some pretty simplified software. They're marketing online and in person. Definitely during coronavirus, we're spending most of our time marketing online. They live the laptop lifestyle, whereas, you might be traveling somewhere but still have to service your clients. So that's sort of something that you have to be willing to accept might happen. They're travel experts. They're not just, I need a ticket from Milwaukee to Orlando, or I need a bus tour in Ireland. Like they don't service all of those things. They service the areas that they're experts in. They offer personalized services. They're professional. They're adaptable and lifelong learners. Any digital entrepreneur nowadays, because the digital business is just constantly shifting, needs to constantly learn new ways of doing business. So if you are a person that's just like set in your ways, refuses to evolve, this is going to be a hard career for you. We'll get into that. And then they travel as much or as little as they want. So that's sort of a very broad overview of what travel advisors are like. So did you want to add anything to that before I move on, Krystal?
No, I think that you hit it all there, but just to that growth mindset part, it's a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. So it's somebody who just knows that everything's figure outable and is eager to learn things. And when you say, there's a lot of people who say, I'm just not tech savvy, I call baloney, because one of the most successful travel agents I know is Lois, and she is 80 years old, and um, she was in a digital marketing course with me, and she was like killing it above all these other millennial travel agents. And just her ability and her mindset just say that I could figure out what a Facebook pixel is. So if Lois can do it, so can you. I think that this is just a really cool opportunity for anybody.
Yeah, it's definitely not a generational thing. It's a mindset. It's a personality thing, because we even had an advisor on our team not too long ago who was the youngest in our group, and she had the hardest time with technology. So, it really has nothing to do with age. It's all about your mindset. So really what you came here to watch or to understand is who is a travel advisor career for and who's it not for. So who's it for? Do any of these sound like you? Do you have wanderlust? Are you always trying to travel? Do you geek out over designing your own trips? Or like Krystal said, do you find yourself designing trips for others for free? Um, to and this is very important, do you have an entrepreneurial spirit? Do you have the desire to not have to answer to a boss? Can you accept a certain level of risk tolerance? Do you want to make your own decisions and own them and be responsible for them? And are you self-motivated? 3, do you not need constant direction or instructions? And there's nothing wrong with answering yes or no to any of these. It's just a matter of fact. If you have your own you have your own ideas and how to do them, and you want to implement them versus having to ask a boss if it's okay, or preferring a boss to tell you exactly how to do it. You don't need to be micromanaged. Are you okay with a bit of uncertainty? Because any entrepreneurial endeavor will lead to uncertainty. You will have months where you're like kicking butt, making sales, making connections, winning awards, whatever. And then the next month it's crickets and your clients are having a hard time. Their travel got messed up because of coronavirus or whatever. And then the next month it's back up again. Are you okay with weathering those storms and appreciating the highs? And you understand that it takes time to experience, or time and experience to see results. You're not going to get, some people do get overnight success, and gosh dang good for them, but like you're most likely not going to have like a lot of income right away. So that leads to number 5. You don't need immediate income. You understand that starting a business takes time before you can turn a profit. Krystal always talks about opening a pizza shop. You wouldn't expect to like make a profit your first month into that pizza shop, because number 1, you have to invest money and time into getting it started. And the beginning is all about investment, and you're okay with like just living through that investment period. And then finally, like what we talked about, you're a lifelong learner, always seeking new ways to improve yourself and in processes. I like people who have an unquenching curiosity. Like they want to know how things work, whether it's how to make their business better, or in the travel industry, it's sort of important too, because people who like to travel generally have a curiosity about cultures and places. If you're not a very curious person, I'm not sure that I just can't see how that would fit together. So did I miss any traits that you can think of, Krystal? No?
I think that all hits it right on the nose.
So if this sounds like you might want to consider this career field. And then just to sort of reiterate, a travel career has these perks. At least the way that it is typically managed nowadays. It's portable. You get to work from home, get to be your own boss, especially for those who maybe have a situation where they've been a stay-at-home mom for a long time and they really just want to get back into the workforce, you can fully utilize your skills in education. It really doesn't matter what your education background or what your skills are. I can guarantee you there will be some relevance and applicability in starting your own business, because really having a business is a crash course in being a jack of all trades. And it's flexible. Childcare is easier to manage because technically you can have your kids at home with you, if that's something you prefer. You don't actually need a license, and we'll get into that more specifically with the next session. It's fun. Like, we're in an industry, aside from coronavirus times, where you're helping people live out their dreams. You're doing things that are fun. You're not a tax accountant. You're not a mortuary affairs, it's lighthearted and it's fun. It can potentially be lucrative, and we can talk about business models that are the most typically lucrative business models out there. And then finally, it has perks. I don't know, I haven't mentioned this yet, but when you're a travel agent, like a real accredited travel agent, you get discount travel, and sometimes you even get free travel. So definitely there are perks to this business. So reconsider if this sounds like you. This is who it's not for. If you don't have a passion for travel, I don't even know why you would be here. That's a no-brainer. If you're not interested in entrepreneurship, if you would be more suited to being an employee, being told what to do, collecting a paycheck, most likely this isn't for you. There's a few and far in between jobs as an employee collecting a paycheck as a travel advisor nowadays. Most of us operate as independent contractors. And even if you are, if you do find a job that's like working as an employee for the AAA in your town, a lot of times they're looking for people who already have experience. So in order to get that experience, most likely you'll have to invest in getting the training yourself and starting your own business. But you might be lucky and find otherwise. I'm just telling you how it generally works. 3, if you're not interested in or willing to invest time and money in yourself, your career, and your business, you're just going to be pulling out your hairs for the first year or two, frustrated that, you're not a millionaire yet. And, you really just have to have the right mindset moving forward. That goes along with, for not being able to consider the long term. It does take time to build a client list. As an independent contractor with a majority of agencies that you'll work with, it'll be your responsibility to market and find your own clients. And if you're starting a business from scratch, it takes time. And to get that consistent income, you don't usually get paid your commission for trips until after the trip is traveled. So even if you open your business tomorrow, book a trip for family to go on a really fancy cruise that leaves 6 months from now, you're not going to collect that commission check until 6 months from now when that travel has occurred. So you need to know, you need to be ready to plan for very little, if nothing, of income for the first 6 months to even maybe the first year, depending on sort of your journey in the travel industry. And that's where I told you we're not going to sugarcoat it. Be ready to strap in and investment mode for the first year at least.
It's a marathon, not a sprint, and it is not a get rich quick scheme. But I would be wary of anything out there online that's a work from home that is promising you that it is.
Yeah.
It's an absolute career. We know advisors that have been doing this for 20 years, and this is their full-time job. We know a lot of husband and wife teams that this is their full-time job, including some veteran and male-spouse husband and wife teams. But so it absolutely can be. My husband and I talk about launching into this as a long-term plan for the two of us, but it's not going to happen overnight, and that's what we always want to caution people of.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know about you, Krystal, but I think it was not until I started year 2 that I started seeing consistent commission checks. They weren't always big, but like every month I would see a commission check. It wasn't until I started year 2 that I started seeing that.
Yeah, so I would say that's true unless your year two's coronavirus. That's my year two happens to me, and then it all kind of goes away. But no, I think for most people, it's year 2 that you kind of make the turn, and year 3 is where you hit your stride as an advisor. Again, why it's such a cool time to be doing this, because for your first year, you're getting your feet wet, you're doing a lot of education, you're just setting things up, and you're doing all of your marketing, all your client attraction things your first couple of years. So.
And you're booking future travel, so you're not going to get that commission until.
And that's just it. So like, I got my first client in the first couple of weeks of being a travel advisor, because I put it out there right away. Here I am. I started in August. I did my first client consult beginning of September, but they didn't travel until December. And so I didn't see my first commission checks until January. And then after that, it started to get to be a little bit more consistent. But, and then a lot of your major trips, when you talk about like lucrative trip opportunities, most people aren't going to spend $20,000 on a vacation to leave next month. This is something that's planned out a long time in advance. So a lot of my big group trips, that was a 6 to a year lead time on planning those travels for people. So.
Yeah, and even those too, like it can take some time having, just showing people that you're still open for business and available and a legit business before they're ready to commit to you with their big trips. So a lot of it is just showing that consistency and that professionalism before you get people who are like, oh, okay, this isn't just a, but run it, fly by night, whatever, like this isn't just something she's doing for fun. And so it also just takes time to build that consumer confidence too. So and then we will get into this later on too, but like one of the reasons that we teach our advisors on our team to highly consider charging what we call trip design and planning fees is so that you can collect a little bit of income in the beginning while you're waiting months for that commission check, and also so you're compensated for the time it takes for you to service that booking. And that's a topic we could have a whole webinar, if not multiple webinars on, because it's actually kind of a controversial topic in the travel agent community. But there are ways to, actually make some income in the median term or middle, whatever, in the near term, while you're waiting for those commission checks to come in. So, but that's something that we talk about in our program too. So, yeah, so the other points that, the last 2 points are, if you're not comfortable working in a virtual environment or willing to learn how to, it's probably not going to work for you. Like I said, most of this is done online now. And even if you did work at a brick and mortar location, the ones I know of have closed, and now they're all working from home because of coronavirus. And who knows how COVID-19 is going to impact our global economy, how business is done. If nothing, I think it might shift workplaces into the way of more virtual operations. So because we're proving that it can be done, it's less overhead for companies. We'll see. And then 6, not interested in continual learning, professional development. Again, to be an entrepreneur nowadays, especially with the dependence that we all have, even for brick and mortar locations. I don't know if you've noticed, but like the local pizza shop, the local taco shop, whatever, they have an online presence. And that's how people find them, and that's how people stay engaged. So even if you have a physical storefront, you still have to have an online presence. And online marketing changes constantly. And that's why we're lucky to have somebody like Krystal on our team who's like interested in continually staying up to date on that and teaching the rest of us. Whereas I geek out over like learning how to do different types of Excel spreadsheets. She's the one that's geeking out over, how do I take advantage of the new Facebook algorithm to, get my posts seen better. So if any of these sound like you, possibly reconsider, because you're probably not, it's just probably not going to work out for you. You could give it a try, but I'm willing to bet it won't last long. Anything to add to that, Krystal?
Nope, that's it. And it's okay if any of these are you, that's okay.
Yeah.
Knowing yourself is so important, and we wouldn't want to waste anybody's time or money if we didn't have to.
Yeah. And also, if you start talking to a travel agency that's recruiting you and they say, like, oh, it's okay, you don't have a passion for travel or don't want to market and find your own clients, or you're comfortable with having limited income for the first few months, that should raise a red flag for you, because it's probably not a legit opportunity. So just look at this as sort of a litmus test for some of those companies out there. There are travel multi-level marketing companies, so try to stay away from those in particular. So specific to military spouses and members of the nomadic service community, again, I told you that we started this program based on the idea we wanted to serve this community and help them with their terrible unemployment situation. This was the more recent data I had. I really have no idea how coronavirus has impacted our US general population unemployment figures. I would imagine it's higher than that at this point. But it's also possible that military spouse unemployment has gone even higher too. So, but this is what we were looking at, and this is what really fueled me and people like Krystal to like continually reach out to the military spouse community and try to give them opportunities that they could use to make this a better situation. So number one, military spouse unemployment is just terrible. Despite the fact that military spouses have more education typically than the typical US general population. And then that's not even including underemployment, which is things like not getting paid to the level commensurate with your experience and education, or not having enough hours, or not having a job that's high enough responsibility. Underemployment's a little bit harder to measure. But again, these numbers don't add up, right? And the reason why is because military spouses have exceptional family challenges. When their service member is gone, they're the sole caretaker for their children, and they have to be ready at the drop of the hat to be, to take care of the sick kid. Or in Krystal's case, when her husband was gone all the time, her daughter Sydney has very special needs, so she needs to be constantly ready to take her to her therapy appointments and her doctor appointments or handle emergencies. And that usually leads to military spouses not being able to find a job that would fit with their lifestyle and just giving up, not pursuing employment. So one could argue even that unemployment figure is low because people have just given up trying to find work in the economy. Frequent PCSs, this is when we move every 2 to 3 years to a new state, new country, whatever, sometimes with little to no notice. So, we could be in a place for 6 months and then go somewhere. So there's, sometimes it's so short that you're living somewhere there's no point in getting a job or no time. I think they say with every $20,000 that you're looking for to make in a business or a job, you should expect 1 month of job searching. So if you're a professional and looking to make over $100,000, it's going to take you more than 5 months to find that job. Military bases are usually located, at least specifically for the Army, in the middle of nowhere, very rural areas with less access to high quality. So the more educated and professional you are, actually the harder it is for you to maintain your career. Like I said earlier, getting a job requires networking. When you move to a new place, you don't have a network, so that just takes time. And then starting over in a new place often means taking a pay cut or drop in career level responsibility. So yeah, so the higher educated you are, the higher experienced you are, the harder it can be. And then this is what happens, this is why military spouses give up on looking for a job. Like Krystal said, she had a situation where they could spot a military spouse from a mile away based upon looking at their resume, the gaps and the weird moves and stuff like that. And there's a unconscious bias that employers have probably when looking at resumes like this, where they just don't even want to consider that candidate because they think they're just going to move soon. Military spouses need flexibility. Childcare can be really expensive in the DC area. It's the most expensive in the country, and there's a huge concentration of military families there. So it's just like, there's no way I'm going to go back to work because I would be losing money on childcare if I just went back to work. Too many gaps in your resume. How do I explain that? For professionals that have licenses and move state to state, there is improvement on this over the last 5 to 10 years with state reciprocity of licenses like RNs, teachers, but it's just not perfect yet. You can't necessarily just transfer your license to a new state and start a job as a nurse or a teacher or a lawyer. That's a difficult thing to overcome. And then finally, after all of these demoralizing experiences, you say, what's the point? I'm just gonna make the best of it and stay at home. And that's a fine decision too. But for those of us who really have identified that we're not good at being stay-at-home moms, that's a hard pill to swallow. So that's kind of the military spouse situation and why we think this is a really great opportunity for military spouses or State Department spouses, FBI spouses. Even Krystal, her husband works for Exxon now. There's a lot of international moving people who work for Exxon, multinational companies that are sort of all over the place. We get you, we've been there, and we think that this is a good opportunity for you. So we're getting over on time, so I just want to wrap it up with saying, I know that there are things that are holding people back from making this jump, and so I just want to quickly address them. One, you might say, no, I don't have any experience. I love to travel, and I do want to be my own boss, but I don't have any experience being a travel agent. That's where opportunities like what we have at Kinship Vacations with our travel advisor training and mentorship program, and other host agencies and different travel agent certification programs out there can help you to learn what you need to enable you to start the career. Think of it as starting a new trade and just getting yourself the education to get there. No license. In the US, travel agents don't technically need a license. There are certification programs out there, but they're not necessarily required for you to actually sell travel. What you do need is a booking credential, and I will talk about that in my next session. And that is something that you can obtain by signing up with a host agency. So don't worry about having to take some sort of long, drawn out, expensive trade education program and certification program.
Hard pass.
Yeah, I mean, it's not required. Maybe in Canada and parts of Europe it is, but not here. You might say, well, I'm not a business person. Most entrepreneurs are not when they start either. They have a passion about an idea, and they just go with it and they learn as they go, especially if they surround themselves with mentors, a supportive community, and ask for help and continuously learn. I mean, any story you hear about the most successful entrepreneurs out there, they're usually sort of just like flying by the seat of their pants and figuring it out as they go. And that's, again, why we're here with our organization to help teach you the necessary skills to start off successfully in terms of operating a business, learning the mechanics of being a travel agent and all that fun stuff. You might be saying, oh, not another MLM, and you're absolutely right. I recommend for new agents, they stay away from MLMs, multi-level marketing companies. There are travel MLMs out there. Kinship Vacations is not one of them. There's no pressure for parties and recruiting, at least in our organization. If you're curious on which MLMs to avoid, a really great resource is hostagencyreviews.com. And they have an article, if you search in their search box, about MLMs. They do not list MLMs in their reviews of host agencies specifically because they don't support them as a way of doing business in the travel industry. So if you find yourself being recruited aggressively by someone to join a team and they're kind of telling you you're going to get rich quick and you can, all they care about telling you is like your discounted travel and they're not really being frank with you about how it works, that's a red flag. You might want to look into their company and you might find that they're an MLM. You might be saying, well, I'm not really tech savvy. But if you know how to email and use Facebook, which I'm guessing you do because if you logged into this Zoom webinar or found us, you probably have the foundation that you need with just some additional coaching and training to get you to where you need to go. It's not that complicated. And then finally, it's scary. And this is completely legitimate. Starting a new business is scary. I mean, every other day I'm scared because I am not clocking in and out of the clock and collecting a paycheck. I am frankly hustling to keep our business moving forward. But I wouldn't have it any other way. I love it. I love the feeling of empowerment, of being my own boss, taking my company in the direction I want it to go, working with who I want to work with. If I didn't want to work with Krystal, I don't have to, but we chose each other. Yes. And you can't get that in a regular job.
No.
It's like I find myself craving stepping outside of my comfort zone now because I've started to do it and it's inevitable as an entrepreneur and I love it. So, so feel free to add anything there. Krystal, wrap it up.
No, so I think that's what we loved about this. There were no bosses, no more interviews. We got to kind of take it into our own hands. It is scary some days because it's scary to put yourself out there as an entrepreneur, and it's scary to announce to people like, hey, by the way, I'm a travel advisor now and I own my own business. And a lot of people will have a lot to say about that when you do make those announcements. And you just have to remember that nobody that is further along in the journey than you are will ever scoff at that statement. It's only the people that you leave behind. And all of this is figure outable. And for the no experience and all that stuff, that's why we created the program that we did. If you love to travel and you have an entrepreneurial spirit, we want you on our team because we can teach you the business side of things, but I can't teach the spirit side and I can't teach the drive. We can encourage it, we can foster it, we can stoke those flames, but we can't instill that in somebody else. That's all you, baby. So if that's you, we teach you the rest of it. So it's just like how just because you love food, maybe you shouldn't go open a restaurant tomorrow. Kind of similar to a travel agency. Loving travel is not enough. You've got to be able to get into the nuts and bolts of all the rest of these things, those other pillars that I talked about earlier. You kind of want to know how to do your marketing and how to run those crazy Excel spreadsheets that Ashley geeks out so much on. And we teach all of that. And if you don't think we're a good fit for you, if you're going to go into this industry, you want to find somebody who's willing to teach you those things too.
Yeah, and there's really great host agencies out there, and I'll talk about it a little bit more in my next session, kind of how you do that homework to find out who's going to work for you. I mentioned again, hostagencyreviews.com. That's a really great place to start doing your research. Mm-hmm. And of course, we'll continually refer to our program because we think that we're awesome because we are. But we also know that, like, for example, and we'll talk about this in a later session, we're super collaborative, super team oriented. And if you're more of a lone wolf, you may not appreciate our vibe. So we know that there's a good program out there for everybody, depending on their personality and work style. So just keep that in mind. Our purpose here is to get you to explore it and find out what's going to work for you. And I hope that the things that we mentioned today will really give you some food for thought on if this is the right move for you to take. And if it is, get you on the right foot on where to get started. Because, one of the things I hear from people who talk to me about exploring this industry is there's even just a lot of information, conflicting information out there on how to get started. So part of our goal here is to simplify how you get started. So if you're in that spot, please stay tuned for, I'm going to skip to this, in just under an hour, our next session, which is how to start a home-based travel agency. And I go through sort of how the industry works, an overview, because it's not like rocket science, but it is a little convoluted. It's not very highly regulated. It's very disjointed. So you can kind of have a base understanding of where people are in the grand scheme of the travel industry and know sort of what your initial options, which are like purchasing a franchise, joining as an independent contractor with a host, going fully independent, and or becoming an employee. I talk a little bit about those options and what most people end up doing in the beginning by default, because there's not a lot of, it tends to be the best option for most people is to be an independent contractor with a host agency. So we talk a lot about host agencies here. Pay attention to the next one so you can have a better understanding of what that means. And that at 2 p.m., Krystal and I will be back. We're going to talk about what it costs to get started, because you guys probably want to know that. We keep talking about investment, and how Kinship Vacations specifically can help you get started. And then, as I said, the next few days are a little bit more geared towards people who are already practicing in the industry. But if you're considering it and you have the time, please tune in too, because it's going to be pretty fascinating to see how a modern travel advisor works and what they need to consider to stay relevant and keep their business moving forward. Tomorrow's like our marketing day. Wednesday is sort of marketing and operations. Thursday is more marketing. Then Friday is we wrap it up with mindset, and we think that we've covered sort of the 4 pillars. If you heard Krystal's talk earlier today on our group page about the 4 wheels of a travel business, it was the customer service, marketing, business systems, and mindset. We feel like we're going to cover all of those this week. So I encourage you to tune in, even if you're not already in the industry, to see like, okay, is this interesting to me now? And if so, then okay, maybe this would be a good career fit. Or, if this is like, granted, it's probably going to be overwhelming because it's overwhelming to everybody. But if it still gives you some inspiration, maybe it is a good fit. Or if it's like, oh my gosh, this gives me a headache, I'm repulsed, I need to throw up, then maybe that's a good sign that you should run the other direction. So yeah, please tune in with us and keep posted with what we've got going on, and feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. Got lots of resources available for you. Do you have anything else you want to add before we sign off, Krystal? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, they're trimming my tree out front right now. It's really exciting around here. Thanks so much to everybody that's joining us this week. I know it's a crazy time in the world, so the fact that you guys are choosing it to spend it with us right now means a lot. So we're going to see you guys all throughout the week. We're going to throw replays in our travel advising, training, and mentorship group in Facebook, so you can always catch the replays there. If you have friends or anybody else that you think would be interested in any of this, feel free to add them to that group, have them register for the rest of the summit at travelcareersummit.com. Judy, I saw your message that one of the links out on the email wasn't working. So as soon as this is done, I'm going to hop out. I'm going to check all that out. and we might have to do some resend out to make sure that that all works. But thank you so much for letting me know. If there's anything else that you think we should know, please don't hesitate to leave us to leave us a note. Could be your computer, could be that I messed something up because I happened to be having a glass of wine while I was setting it all up this weekend, because coronavirus quarantine lets us do some crazy things. So I appreciate the feedback, because that always helps us serve you guys better. So.
Oh, and I also want to give a shout out to Judy for watching. She has been a participant in our virtual summits in the past. She's a really great travel advisor in my old hometown, Williamsburg, Virginia. She has a really cool business, sailandsandtravel.com, and she is a former military spouse. So we love Judy. Thank you for tuning in today. She's got a really great base of knowledge, experienced agent. Thank you for supporting us like you always do. And then Yolanda Robertson, also somewhat experienced agent, was tuned in earlier. So thanks for watching, Yolanda. And for the rest of you catching the replay, feel free to type in comments on the replay. And if you have questions or anything, we'll swing back to them and get them answered for you too. All right, well, that is it. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day, and hopefully I'll see you in about 40 minutes for our next one. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.